if it doesn't work, it's okay. We'll support them again on their next try. And in doing so, by transferring that risk off them to us, we think will lead to a lot more breakthroughs in the world.
All right, Jordan Blashek, how are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
I already enjoyed so much, speaking before this, so I'm so excited for the show, and I purposely didn't ask too much because I'm ready to hear now. Jordan, you have such an extraordinary life path, from being an infantry officer to studying at Princeton, Yale, and Stanford, law degree and business degree, and I can't even grasp my mind over it. And you're writing a book which is coming out soon, but actually by the time this is aired, it will already be out, talking about America and the polarization, or hopefully, I hope there's some optimistic note, we'll see. And now it's Schmidt Futures, and I can't wait to hear all about that. And lastly, venture partner at J Ventures, where I'm also at. So this is just all wonderful. Jordan, how do you get to go to these three incredible institutions? How do you get to be an infantry officer in the U.S. Army?
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that. Every time I talk to Israelis, I feel like I am so underaccomplished, because by the time you guys even go to school, you've already done so much in your lives, and that's true for you too. But yeah, no, I've had a great few years. You and I have shared a lot. I was the first associate at J Ventures when it was just J Angels, and it was one of the best experiences I've had at Stanford.
I have huge shoes to fill right now. This is very scary.
No. You have far surpassed me already. But I guess so. My journey started back in California. I grew up in Los Angeles, son of two Jewish parents who wanted nothing more than for me to go to medical school. And I get to college. I sort of, like a good Jewish boy, decide I'm going to go to medical school. And my junior summer, I was working in medical clinics in India, and just realized that I actually didn't love the medicine side, but I really did love being out in austere environments and working with local populations. And so I decided, coming out of that I wanted to join the U.S. military. And after looking around, I found that the Marine Corps was the group that I really wanted to be a part of. They have such amazing esprit de corps. Every Marine is so proud to be a Marine.
Wait, for many, Jordan, which of the three institutions was your undergrad?
Oh, I went to Princeton undergrad.
So Princeton, how common is it for somebody at Princeton during their studies to decide that they're going to join the U.S. Army?
I think my year, we had about 5 of us who all joined the military.
That's more than I thought. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it was around 2009. And at that point, we had watched all these generations go off to war. And I think there was a sense among a lot of us, and this was true across my officer cohort, that there were a lot of people who were just very inspired over the couple years before. And so we were all very passionate about serving the country. We were very idealistic about it. And so there was a good number who went. So I ended up joining the Marines in 2009. I went through officer training, and by the end decided I wanted to be an infantry officer. So I went to the infantry officer course, and then ended up doing 2 deployments, one to the Horn of Africa, doing counter-piracy and counter-terror missions, and then another to Afghanistan, where I was an advisor to the Afghan army.
Oh my God. Okay, I need one short story. I know it's impossible to just ask for one, but I need one story, whether it was from the officer's training or from one of your deployments, something that taught you, something that you're taking with you until now. That's always the most fun.
Oh, that's a great question. I think the lesson I learned from officer training, especially the infantry officer course, the Marine Corps does a fantastic job of training young leaders.
Yeah.
And the one thing they want you to learn is to operate under uncertainty. And so the infantry officer course, kind of from start to finish, is just one uncertain event after another. They'll wake you up kind of at 3 a.m. and send you off on missions, or they won't tell you what's coming 3 hours later. And I think the value I gained from that over time was just being very comfortable without knowing kind of what's coming next. And in every job I've had since, it's just been very valuable to know that through persistence, I could just figure it out and to be able to make decisions under uncertainty. And wow. The Marine Corps just did a fantastic job for training that.
Unbelievable. I remember I climbed Kilimanjaro with my father and brother about a year ago exactly. And on the climb, I read Extreme Leadership by two people that were very high in the ranks in the U.S. Army. And I remember just how impressed I was with this mindset. And obviously, having gone through a military training of my own, I don't think it was as intense. It probably a little much less intense than what you've experienced. I was much more, in the typing. My finger got injured. That was the biggest injury I had. But that's incredible. Okay, so you do that, and where do you go from there? How do you get them to do law in the Yale and then business at Stanford?
Yeah, so around 2013, it was sort of increasingly obvious to a lot of us that the wars were winding down. And if the wars were winding down, at least for me, it sort of began to lose a bit of its idealistic purpose. And so if the wars weren't going to be there, I decided it was time to move on. And it didn't come from a desire for combat, but it came from this sense that there was a lot of mission and purpose when we were preparing for war, and if we weren't doing that, it wasn't going to feel quite as visceral. And little did I know that a year later we'd be back at war with ISIS. But either way, I made my decision and decided to leave. And so I wanted to go to graduate school. I knew that over the long term, I wanted to do two things in my life. I wanted to be able to kind of engage in the world of ideas and policy, and I also wanted to start companies. And so I decided with 4 years of the GI Bill that it would pay for school, that I would try to do law and business, because law would give me that ability to work in the world of ideas and policy, and business school would kind of help train me for a career in the private sector and creating companies. And honestly, I think there's something about veterans who come out of the military and feel that the world outside the military is so foreign. We don't really know what's happening out there, so we decide to go to grad school or to go to college. And I've seen that through a lot of my friends leaving the military, that there's almost this desire to kind of like arm up with degrees, because it's going to prepare you for the world afterwards. And so I ended up doing that and getting the 2 joint degrees.
I think that's so interesting. In the Israeli military, every day you see one of your friends getting released, because everybody is in the military, and there's always this initial shock where you ask them on the day that they're about to leave the base, like, how are you feeling? Are you excited? And almost all of them are saying, no, we're terrified. We're excited that we're finished, but we're terrified. And then you meet them the next week at a coffee shop in Tel Aviv, and they're having the time of their lives, already working on their second startup. And, and the assimilation is quick, because I think everybody goes through the experience, so they're able to talk to a lot of people who've gone through this. So you get your law and your business degree. You also are an associate at J Ventures. And I'd love to touch upon this book that by the time this airs has already come out, because it's touching on something that I became very passionate about studying with Larry Diamond at Stanford this year, talking about the polarization within the United States. How do you go then? Because you've done this in the past just 2 years, right? Writing the book. So what drives you to go and think critically about community within the US and where we're at now?
Yeah, and so I started this while I was at Stanford Business School, and it was also at the same time I started working for J Ventures, and I started working for Eric Schmidt at Schmidt Futures. And I think to your point before, leaving the military, I felt like I needed to go to school. I needed to get some credentials and kind of arm up with more information, but very quickly realized that at that stage of my life, that the best information I would get would actually come from working and kind of going out and experiencing things and learning on the job. And so by the time I got to Stanford, I focused mostly externally and was trying to find opportunities where I could learn the skills I really wanted to learn. And with J Ventures, I got to learn about what it looks like to do due diligence on companies and how to think about the markets they're moving into, and how to kind of look at a team and evaluate whether you want to make a bet on this group. With Eric Schmidt, I learned some incredible lessons about how to think about things at scale, or how to take ideas from good to great, or collaborate with different groups of people. And separately, this was around 2016, and clearly something was happening in the country. There was a lot of division, and the country seemed to be convulsing under this weird political environment. And I decided I wanted to see it firsthand. So instead of kind of learning about it through the news or in classrooms, I wanted to see it on the ground. And
so you get into a car and you just drive.
Yeah, and the first few trips started just for fun. My friend and I wanted to be on the road, and so we took some of our breaks and picked a few places we wanted to visit and just got out on the road. And while we're out there, you just see the country differently. It's big and beautiful, and everyone you meet is hospitable, and you learn something from them. And we also learn from each other. And being in a car for long hours, my friend Chris is a hippie from Berkeley. I'm a conservative Marine, and we had such different worldviews. But over long conversations, we were able to kind of untangle all these common values that we actually had underneath it all. Even if we were just having a debate with friends, we would seem to be at odds on everything. When we were really able to give it time and with humility, we found that we shared all these common values. And where we didn't, we learned something about ourselves. We learned what blind spots we had or what presuppositions we were coming to arguments with. And so the heart of our story ended up being kind of the things we learned about each other and our friendship, and the things we learned about the country through the people we met. And so the book is this argument for what still binds us together despite all the political division today.
I think that's so wonderful, and it's so optimistic. One of the incredible things that I was so inspired by learning this year with Larry Diamond was this experiment in One America in One Room he had, where he brought in hundreds of people from a random group into Texas, to a hotel and into a venue, and over 3 days they had them converse in a very humane way. And all of a sudden, what inspired me most was not that they changed beliefs sometimes, but that Democrats began seeing Republicans as, instead of enemies, as people that they can converse with and have some common ground with, and same vice versa. And that was the hopeful message here, and that's why I'm really looking forward to reading the book. But Jordan, I want to talk about Schmidt Futures, because one of the things that I saw is that you're very into impact investing, right? And Eric also, all the way back from Innovation Endeavors, is all about investing and looking at things that are moving the needle. What is impact for you, and why are you following that route?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for me, there are things I care about. I care about kind of the future of America, and I want to see it healthy. That's a lot of where the book came from. And I care a lot about the future of security and creating a more kind of vibrant, prosperous world free of war. So I think some of that drove my desire to go into the military. And ultimately, I think the ability for a free democratic society to survive depends on progress. We need to keep growing the pie. If people feel like the pie is shrinking, if people feel like we're static, then it becomes very zero-sum, and it's very hard for our democratic systems to survive in that kind of world. And so there is this imperative for us to drive progress, and that's progress in the fields of science and technology. It's progress in our understanding of human rights and civil rights, and that's what we do at Schmidt Futures. We look to advance scientific frontiers. We try to advance technology's impact on society, and we try to advance shared prosperity and national security. And we've taken a sort of unique approach. And we're very lucky to have Eric Schmidt as our founder, who believes deeply in this. And he pushes us not to think necessarily about returns, but to think about the talent we're backing and how we're transferring risk from them to us. And so his theory and our theory is that the way to achieve progress is to go find exceptional people who don't have a track record yet. And because they don't have a track record, others aren't really willing to invest in them. So venture capital firms won't invest on kind of the riskiest ideas because they're not proven out in the market yet. Right. Government won't invest in sort of very high risk research and development because they're using taxpayer dollars. And so these ideas or people that don't yet have track records have a hard time getting the capital to test their ideas. And so what we do is we try to look for those exceptional people who, but for our investment, they wouldn't be able to do or try the thing they want to try. And then we make bets on them, and we give them risk capital We don't take any equity from it. It is purely for the impact they could create. And then we try to support them through helping build teams around them, giving them support and mentorship, and watching as, through teams and talent and support, they achieve their breakthroughs. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. We'll support them again on their next try. And in doing so, by transferring that risk off them to us, we think will lead to a lot more breakthroughs in the world.
Wow. Okay. So, the idea of a venture capital is that you invest in, let's say, 10 companies a year. Hopefully one of them will return 10x, and then you're balancing out and you're able to continue doing that. When you're giving risk capital for no equity, you're essentially, you're just diluting the same pie that you had initially without putting in more. So it sounds like you have to even be more risk averse as you're going through your journey than, in traditional venture capital. And you're betting on people, you're betting on talent. How do you go about doing that? And what does that mean to be head of talent within Schmidt Futures?
Yeah, it's a great question. So as head of talent, I oversee all of our internal talent development. So, because we want to bet on talent, we also think internally we have to have the best team. So I'm responsible for kind of recruiting everyone we have. And then we have a number of talent programs. So we have an entrepreneur in residence program, we have a science fellows program, an APM program. All of these are designed to go find exceptional people and channel them into certain areas that we think are underrepresented with that kind of talent. So for instance, our science fellows program is trying to produce more interdisciplinary scientists. We don't think there's enough of those, even though all the breakthroughs we're going to see in the next few decades are going to come at the intersection of fields. It's when you combine things like computer science and biology that you get kind of these interesting breakthroughs. And so our program is designed to do that. Similarly, we don't think there's enough computer scientists in the philanthropic world. And so our APM program is designed to take computer scientists and then put them on moonshot type ventures in the philanthropy world. And so I oversee all those talent programs. And, I think the reality is no one has really cracked the code on how you can rigorously test for talent. There's still somewhat of an art to this. And everyone on our team has kind of developed their own methods for how you find that. And, for some people, it's they have almost like archetypes in their head. Just like in Hollywood, there's like specific roles in movies that you look for. We think in the talent world, there are specific archetypes that if you find them, they're really worth kind of betting on. And so, there's sort of the genius generative type who, they just see targets differently. And as a result, they're constantly coming up with new ideas. But that person might be terrible at managing a team. And so if we can find that genius and then pair them with a highly talented operator, someone who just, kind of like the chief of staff type function in the military, they just know how to execute, then that's like a dynamo combination. And so a lot of what our team does is try to find those different archetypes or try to find ways of testing for genius or generative ability, and then finding the right pair so that you maximize their potential impact.
Wow. Okay. That's just, to me, it sounds like a dream job. Sitting there and trying to think, how can we bet on moonshot ideas by moonshot people that have a chance to succeed in this, and we want to join their journey and support them, and doing that without, taking equity and without thinking about the capital side of things, but embracing the talent that they have and trying to, and at the end, making a positive impact on democracy and the country. I think that's just incredible. Jordan, what excites you most? You're seeing so many different talents, and you're seeing so many different projects. You're constantly embracing this idea of moonshot and impact investing. What do you get most excited about?
Yeah, so I get really excited when I find someone who has this incredible combination of just raw talent. They're very talented. They care deeply about an issue, and they have the specific skill set and unique insight to go solve it. And the reason I get so excited about that is it's actually really rare. It's very, very rare to find someone who they care so much about an issue, and they've really figured out a specific insight into how you could solve it, and they happen to have the right skill set in order to do it. And when you find that person, it's like unlocking a code that just can change the game. And we've found a few of those at Schmidt Futures, and it's like the greatest joy to find that person and then get to help them do whatever it is they're going to do. Because the amount of change and impact they have is so fast and so quick once they get the support they need. And so I get really excited about that. There's one person in particular who I always love to talk about. Her name's Clem Jacoby, who was a Google PM and became obsessed with the criminal justice system because her uncle had gone to prison multiple times. And she had this insight into how you can change the criminal justice system. And she's going to do it. And with a very small check from us, she's now raised over $10 million. She's operating in all 50 states, and she will change the criminal justice system in the US. And that all happened in 1 year. Like in 1 year, she did that. So that's what I get excited about.
Wow. And how long is usually this process as you're meeting new people and as you're hearing about their talents and you're actually forming a much more meaningful relationship about that person, not just about the, how good is the market and what are the likely returns. You're putting that effort that a VC might put, and you're navigating it towards that person and their motivation and their abilities. So how long does that usually take you?
It varies by person, and it varies on the kind of person we're betting on. But someone like Clem, it was almost immediate that we realized, like, this person's special. Let's see what she can do. And so often we'll start with a smaller check just to test them, to see, with a little bit of money, what could they do? And if they're able to get some traction and show us that they really have the ability to do whatever it is they say they want to do, then we'll go bigger on them. And so that first check could be within a couple weeks of meeting the person.
Wow, Jordan, it sounds like a dream job. Definitely wait for my resume one day that I want to come and learn. Thank you, and learn as much as I can. But before we leave, and I can't believe 20 minutes are almost up. I have so many more questions to ask you. This is so bad. I need 3 words from you, and then I have one more question that I'm going to have to squeeze in there. I need 3 words that you use to describe yourself.
3 words to describe myself?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
It's the hardest question out of all of them.
That is very hard. Okay, I'll go with persistent, freckly. I have a lot of freckles. You might not be able to see them. And patriotic.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, the last question, and this is actually going to be my favorite one. Leadership. You've seen leadership across academia, across military, across venture capital. What's a common theme? What is something that you see that keeps coming up no matter where you are in the world, no matter what you do? Because I'm guided by this idea that leadership isn't when you're in the boardroom. It's not when you're in front of your companies. It's everywhere you walk, every move you do, you need to act as a leader and you need to think of yourself as a leader. But so what are common themes that you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the most important leadership quality and the most consistent one I've seen in great leaders is they just genuinely care about the people under their command or under their charge. They truly love them and they'll do anything for them. And leaders who have that quality, they end up putting more time and effort into the things they do because it comes from that place of care. And people feel it. You can feel when someone genuinely cares about your well-being and your future. And the best leaders do that. And they do it just because that's who they are.
I love it. Jordan, thank you very, very much. This was inspiring, and I look forward to continue learning from you and reading your book and maintaining this relationship. This was wonderful.
This was, and it was my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.